Welcome to Growing, Feeding, Building Community. My name is Max Grunig with Cocosito, a place for informed dialogue and debate about the future of environmental policy. We believe diverse perspectives, dynamic exchanges, and innovative approaches are the keys to building a vibrant, sustainable future. And today, we want to discuss about the specifics of growing in an urban environment, the challenge of preparing healthy meals based on healthy ingredients, and how this links to food security and building community. And what drove us to host this today is basically the whole year 2020, but everything that happened before already. But this year made it really clear it's become an imperative to take action on the lack of food access. And this is not just about people being hungry, so not having enough calories. This is about getting the right nutrients, so healthy food, and about having the energy and the nutrients to be strong and healthy, to be able to build community or whatever we want to do, right? Not everybody wants to build community. Some people want to be solitary hermits, but they still should be healthy and happy doing that. So what we want is food justice. And we have great speakers here today with us, but I'm also happy about having all the participants. I see the room is filling up. And I'll let you in one by one. And if it doesn't work for some reason, if you get kicked out, just dial in again. The link should work, and I'll do my best to let you back in. Just one note, music, those of you who dialed in very early heard it early up front. There was some music in the background. This is actually from a band I'm trying to promote a little bit. It's from where I am now. I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia, and the band is mostly based here. They're called Stray Fossa. And one of the band members used to work with me a while back. His name is Nick Evans, and he asked them, and they said, yeah, sure. It's great if you can promote us. So this is also locally made music, basically, in the spirit of locally made things. So we'll hear them again during the breaks. Why do we have breaks? Because we have 3 speakers. And first, I want to introduce you to the speakers. We have Crystal Foreman. Crystal is the owner and educator of Holistic Wellness and Health. And as a passionate health and wellness educator, she helps you use plant-based approach to focus on disease prevention and on living a healthier and more vibrant life. She uses a whole person approach focused on mind, body, soul, and spirit to improve the quality of life for all beings. Holistic Wellness and Health offers healthy plant-based cooking classes, wellness workshops, health coaching, gardening consultation, and mindfulness meditation. Thank you for joining us here today, Crystal. It's a real pleasure. Thank you for making time on a Saturday. Our next speaker here today is Seth Wheeler, and Seth works professionally as a project manager and consultant specializing in organizational development and low-impact solutions for ecological restoration, sustainable agricultural innovations, and novel renewable energy systems. Seth has provided design and build services for several regional organizations, including Civic Works, Living Classrooms, Blue Water Baltimore, Parks and People, the University of the District of Columbia, Virginia State University, the National Arboretum, and more. Seth has also developed emergency food and emergency systems for Haiti, Liberia, and Libya, as well as novel innovations for NASA, DoD, the US Forest Service, and many more. Seth is devoted to implementing high-efficiency agricultural solutions, stormwater management, and erosion control projects throughout the region in an effort to minimize erosion and negative impacts within the Chesapeake Bay water
Max, we lost you.
I think you were saying too many things about me, Max. Let's see if we can unfreeze him. Okay, I think he's going to try and rejoin here.
Welcome back. You're on mute.
Unmute yourself, Max. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We'll figure this out.
Hello, I'm on my phone now. This is kind of weird. My computer crashed in the middle of giving an introduction. It's kind of new experience. Here I am from my phone. It looks a little bit different. I might not be able to do everything as planned, but I hope you can at least see and hear me now. Great. I was just introducing Seth, and I hope you heard some of it. I think, basically done when my computer crashed on me. I'll try to restart my Google Chrome while I'm doing this, but it seems at least we can continue. I want to introduce a third speaker, of course, too. Floyd, are you still there? Yeah, I see you. Floyd Godsey is here too. Floyd serves as a project manager for Natural Wind Energy and Earthworks. He is a social entrepreneur focused on transforming communities through urban farming and wants to help develop solutions that will increase the availability of healthy food options. Floyd has been officially gardening since 2014. And while living in Baltimore, Maryland, he has worked as a farm manager for various urban farms in the area. So you can see already we have a lot of people here from Baltimore, and that's great. I'm personally in Charlottesville, Virginia, and of course we have participants from all over the place, and this is, I think, really phenomenal. So of course what we discuss here today is not just relevant for people in Baltimore, but I think it's also a great opportunity to connect people in the area. So let's see if we can do a poll. I actually started preparing some polls, but I think I cannot do this from my phone, which is totally fine. I mean, there has to be limits to everything. So let's go then into our first session. And I hope Seth is more ready than I am currently. Seth, you're going to talk about the future of food security. And everybody else, this is a very interactive meeting. As you can see, moderators fall out of the meeting in the middle of it and come back on handheld devices. Just a reminder, everybody can have their cameras and microphones on. This is under your control. So we rely also on you for a little bit of sound hygiene. If it gets very loud, we can't hear Seth, right? So if you don't present, then it's best if you mute yourselves. I'll do the same now and hand over to Seth. Thank you for being here today. And yeah, we will have opportunity to engage. And I also prepared a poll we can do at the end of your session. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Max. I really appreciate you inviting me to be part of this panel. And thank you to Floyd and Crystal as well, and all of the attendees. I am a builder, designer, innovator. I'm not much of a speaker, so if you can just bear with me and let's keep this kind of casual. If anyone has a question or a point that they want to relay, please, jump in. I don't know. I think there's a hand raised thing here, or just just interrupt me. I won't take offense to it, but yeah, I think where I want to head with the information I'm going to present to you is an update on where we are now with food security, or more accurately, food insecurity. So through my research over the last several weeks, I've found that there's not a lot of data. It's very hard to find the data on really what's going on with poverty and hunger, not only in the world, but in America as well. So I'm going to share some of these updated statistics with you all, just to point out where we are. And then we'll go into the solutions. So mainly the thing is to bring awareness, and let me maybe open up my slideshow here. Very basic slideshow here. Okay, so basically, Johns Hopkins University has been in charge of the and hospital has been in charge of sharing the data for the COVID numbers with us. But as far as the hunger numbers, it's slowly trickling in. So I do want to discuss the definition of what food security, or rather what food insecurity is. A person is considered food insecure when they lack regular access to enough safe and nutritious food for normal growth and development and an active and healthy life. So we're going to go over the U.S. real quick. Before the pandemic hit, food insecurity numbers in the U.S. were falling, but now the numbers are worse than they have been in decades. Nearly 1 in 4 households in the U.S. have experienced food insecurity this year in 2020. Out of 157 million Americans in the workforce, more than 25 million are enrolled in unemployment programs. So those are people that qualify for unemployment. So we actually have a much greater number of folks that are out of work here in the United States. And one of the bigger factors we see in food insecurity is poverty. So why are people hungry? It is because they are poor. According to the Rockefeller Foundation, 40% of Americans are unable to access $400 in times of an emergency. 1/3 of the households with children couldn't afford to buy the amount of food or quality of food that they wanted this year. School closures put 30 million children at risk of losing the meals that they need. So one of the bigger things that we'll see, especially in urban environments, but it is in rural and all across the board, is that many children in school, they're really depending on their school meals for nutrition. A lot of these students are not able to eat well enough at home, so they are very dependent on that. So the school closures are making a huge impact to that. This is how the USDA defines food security here in America. So, the goal is to have more people with high food security and less people with very low food security. This pyramid is becoming more of a column now. I am still trying to find some charts showing that, but we are now at a point to where SNAP enrollment, which is food stamps or EBT, has increased by 25% this year. So let me see here. We had 38 million people use SNAP in 2019, which is 1 out of 9 folks in America. That has grown 25%. So we've added almost an additional 10 million SNAP benefits here in America alone. The director of the Institute for Policy Research at Northwestern University, Diane Schnazenbach, says that there needs to be at least a 15% increase in those benefits just for folks to survive. But those increases may not be approved for months or years, if at all. And what we're seeing now is Americans now have to decide whether to pay their bills, whether it be a rent or mortgage bill, or utility, their lights, their electricity, their heat, their water, or are they going to buy food? This is the situation that we are seeing in America. This right here is a map in America of food deserts. So food desert can be defined as an area where people cannot get to a supermarket within a mile, which is how it's defined in an urban environment. In a rural environment, they consider that 10 miles. So my experience with urban farming has actually shown me that even if it's within a half mile, it doesn't mean that someone's going to be able to get there, get all their groceries, get on the bus, and get back to their house. I have tried to do this in Baltimore many times, taking public transportation and carrying all your groceries, and sometimes the bus just doesn't come. So this map right here represents the people that are having a really hard time to get to things, but I actually think that it's actually much more difficult for these folks. So school is an anchor for nutrition, and we've had supply chain disruptions. One of the biggest factors in literacy and incarceration is a lack of nutrition. So what we're going to see here is another map in America of incarceration rates by county, and that's 2018. This is the most up-to-date data I can get. But if you notice these maps, your food stamps, your incarceration, and your food deserts are all pretty much in the same areas. And we see that by county, on a county level, that the poorer a county, the more incarceration, the more illiteracy rates, the fewer students you have graduating from high school. In Baltimore alone, we had 14 schools last year that not a single child tested literate, which is appalling. But these figures, they all go together. Another correlating factor here is race. We see a giant disparity with Black and Hispanic populations up above 29-30%. And this is before COVID. So now we're looking actually at higher numbers. Researchers at Northwestern University have said that food insecurity has more than doubled this year because of the crisis. And food insecurity in households with children has tripled. So the most at-risk folks right now are Black and Hispanic children. They are the ones really suffering right now. And they just don't have the support because they cannot go to school and get their nutrition right now. Another group that we're seeing who has twice as much likelihood of being food insecure are Americans with disabilities. And these are, this is a group that we really don't think about when we think of food insecure. So people with disabilities, which can be mental, physical, it could be elderly, any sort of disability, they are at twice the amount of risk as well. Now we're gonna start getting a little bit more into the history of the race disparity. So we can see in 2000, Black and Hispanic populations were twice as likely to be food insecure as opposed to white and non-minority populations. And this has gone up since 2000. But in 2008, we hit a really big spike due to the recession. Those numbers started coming back down again around 2015, 2016. But this graph does not show 2020, where we're actually looking at a spike about a third to more higher than what this graph right here shows. So globally, more than 2 billion people worldwide lack access to safe or nutritious food. In the past half decade, things have been going backwards and could continue to worsen. The UN's Food and Agricultural Organization forecast in its annual review of the world's food security and nutrition. Almost 690 million people in the world were undernourished in 2019. That's 8.9% of the world population. undernourished is a result of food insecure. So you can be food insecure and not quite undernourished, but if you are undernourished, you are definitely food insecure. There are almost 60 million more undernourished people now than in 2014. So to put that into perspective, New York City has a population of a little over 8 million people. So 60 million people is actually equal to the 80 largest cities in the United States. So if you took practically 10 New York cities, those folks are now hungry, that were not hungry in 2014. The United Nations also says that the number of undernourished could increase by nearly 25% this year alone. That's an additional 130 million. It is a vision described as an alarming scenario. Every world region is becoming more overweight, with obesity one of the major underlying causes of heart disease and death, which means hunger is actually increasing the risk of death. Child stunting declined by 1/3 from 2000 to 2019, but it is expected to nearly double this year alone. So why is hunger getting worse? It is because people are poor, and they're getting poorer. What we're seeing from the pandemic is an economic crisis. We are seeing people dying from the disease itself, but what we are seeing is a greater effect of increased hunger. So the forecasts for this zero hunger target by 2030, it's not going to happen. The United Nations, World Economic Forum, they have many programs with other NGOs to greatly reduce the number of hunger by 2030, and especially with this pandemic, that forecast has actually reversed to where more folks are going to be hungry by 2030 if we don't do something. So how do we create food security? So we've got a lot of doom and gloom going on now. Things are bad and they're getting worse as far as hunger and poverty goes. So what do we do to fix it? We create opportunity. That's all it comes down to. Is we have to create the opportunity. And what do I mean by opportunity? Well, we need to create a circular food economy. We need to give folks the ability to have a green job, to work in farms, to produce food, to have all of the other supporting jobs related to it, whether it's distribution, transportation, teaching, testing, research, and development. So this is what the Global Hunger Index refers to as a circular food economy. Let's see here. And to tell you a little bit more about that, a circular economy recycles resources and materials to keep them continually in use, regenerates natural systems, and eliminates waste and pollution. In a food system, a circular economy requires producers, consumers, companies, and governments to reduce the amount of waste generated in the food system, safely reuse leftover food, make use of byproducts and food waste, recycle nutrients, and implement systems to manage food waste and surpluses so they are not lost to the system. Basically, a circular food system is what any environmentalist would look at as a reduce, reuse, recycle program, or a closed loop system to where we can maximize the use out of materials, whether they're harvested or grown or manufactured. We can maximize the use of them instead of just using something once and throwing it away. So, for example, we can grow food, use some of the byproducts to create compost. We can use some of the byproducts to create food for black soldier fly larvae or mushroom fungus, which becomes food for us. Black soldier fly can become food for fish and poultry amongst other things. So this is actually this is a response from the Rockefeller Foundation. They have created something called the Food Initiative. I really like this. This is a presentation about reset the table, meeting the moment to transform the U.S. food system. The more I've read on this one, I really like it. But basically, their suggestions encompass 3 shifts in our food system, which is to create a more integrated nutrition security system, create a reinvigorated regional system, and equitable prosperity throughout the supply chain. So I think this is wonderful, and we're going to go into what this means here. The regional systems are basically ensuring relief and stimulus policies improve the resilience of supply chains. So think about more production closer to home. So if we want to say feed people in Baltimore, well, then we need to start supplying most of our residents with food from Baltimore. We're not really seeing this, and this has been shown in this pandemic with the supply chain breakdown and the travel restrictions. We've actually seen many food producers shut down. So if we were depending upon getting meat, or grains, or dairy, or vegetables from, let's say, another country, we've not been able to get those now. Some of these places have gone out of business for good. Some big meat companies in America, some larger grain companies too, in other countries. So we are not getting those food supplies that we're used to getting. That's why we've seen some empty shelves sometimes in the stores. And this is also why community-supported agriculture models and food cooperatives are coming to the forefront, and we're really seeing that they have a huge benefit. Integrated nutrition security systems is, I think this is more about working with your policymakers and working with your institutions like hospitals and schools. So we are able to educate children and their families on the nutrition, which I'm sure Crystal is going to go into, but they're actually saying expand food as being medicine, which I just think is a miracle that we get to discuss this. Food is medicine. You are what you eat. That is a very real thing. So this is just wonderful to me to see that some of these higher ups in this global network of corporations and NGOs and teams, that they are saying, let's invest in the schools, let's invest in the education, and then promote equitable prosperity. This is something that I have found through some of my work, especially in Baltimore, that it might be cheaper for, let's say, a hospital to get some sort of prepackaged food from a large company like Cisco or something. I'm not putting them down, but that's a big company. They source their food from all over the world. They've got it down almost to like a factory process, which is okay, but that cuts out the local farmers. That cuts out maybe some of that fresher, healthier food. So what they're saying here is that we need better guidelines for the kind of food that is getting into our institutions. And how do we do that? We actually need to provide more financing options, small loans, credit, more infrastructure to them, and distribute that risk. So if a small farmer loses one customer, and I've seen it this year just from the pandemic, a lot of farmers were dependent on, say, providing food to 1, 2, or maybe 3 restaurants, and then when the restaurants close down, they're out of food. I've seen lots of farms in Maryland and Pennsylvania that have had to literally till their crops back into the ground because they can't sell the food, and they don't want to create any sort of pest issue. And it's been heartbreaking to see that local dairy farmers providing, healthy milk have had to empty out thousands of gallons from their tanks. So by distributing that risk, and there's multiple models, you can do it with cooperatives, you can do it through sort of alliances. But if you can distribute that risk, well, it makes it much easier for small farmers to kind of come onto the scene and work with their community and provide jobs. So Creating opportunity. This is where we start. We start with bringing the families, bringing the kids into the gardens. We want them to get their hands on and see where the food comes from. 55% of children in a study done in Britain several years ago said that they did not know that food in the grocery store actually came from farms. They did not understand that the food on the shelves grew on a plant. So, you know, I've been able to teach children of all ages how to grow food and eat the food that they grow. And it's quite simple, actually, and they want to do it. They're actually really good workers, but you know, this is where it starts. They're interested in it, and once they are able to harvest something that they grew, it just changes the way they look at their food system, their community, their family. I've had students take seedlings home and plant them, grow gardens, not even tell me about it. One instance was that I can remember was I had a grandmother of one of my students several years ago. She saw me in the grocery store, funny enough, but she comes up to me, says, "Are you Seth?" And I say, "Yes." And she says, "Oh, well, you're teaching my granddaughter." She tells me her name. I said, "Oh, yeah, she's one of my best students." And she had taken some of our seedlings, grown a huge garden in her backyard, and they had been eating off of that food. And her whole family was able to cook some of the traditional foods they used to cook, but they've been unable to source sometimes good okra or fresh collard greens or, you know, all kinds of stuff, radishes, beets, fresh lettuce. They were now able to source that from the grocery store. So this woman was very appreciative of me for that. And I never even knew about it. My student never told me she did that. But that's how children are. They're funny. They'll do stuff in just a really brilliant way sometimes, and they will take the lead on some of these projects. So another aspect of this is technology. We have phenomenal technology now. We can build very efficient greenhouses with in a passive solar way, in a highly insulated way, evaporative cooling. We can do aquaponics, hydroponics, aeroponics, which is a big thing that the space agencies are into, is aeroponics. It shows a 5 to 10 times increase in the amount of food you get and how fast it grows. There's also really neat composting systems, static aerated composting systems that turn food waste and farm waste into compost 10 times faster than just putting it in a pile. Solar thermal, as some of you on this call that know me, I never shut up about solar thermal. I think this is probably one of the lowest hanging and most beneficial technologies that we can use to grow food and heat our houses. These are some of the systems that I've been fortunate enough to build over the last few years, but they are relatively simple systems. They last 20 to 40 years, depending on which materials you use, and they're extremely efficient. Most of the time, they pay for themselves within 2 years, and we use no petroleum products to do it. So these are some of the innovations that we can look at. If we're looking at sustainable agriculture, these are some of the innovations that we can look at doing. Shipping container systems are getting huge as well. You are actually able now to grow upwards of 1,000 pounds of greens in a shipping container every week. Some of the systems I've been able to work for, we can use that same system and provide food for cattle. So if we want to have some pasture-fed cattle, small scale or maybe small scale dairy or poultry, we can grow a lot of the greens that they need, or even grains that they need or we need in a shipping container system. So another aspect of the solution that we need to see to start helping this food security issue is what I call an omni-channel distribution organization. So what does that mean? People are getting their food from CSAs. Sometimes they go to the farm to pick it up. A lot of people have been getting their food from schools. Even now, they'll wait in line to get their food at a school still for their children or for themselves. You can go to grocery store. You can order things and have your food delivered to your house. So one of the best things about modern technology is we can now use software to make it easy for local farmers to get their food into the local supply chain. So we can source smaller amounts from local farms. They don't have to start from scratch. They don't have to pay for the software. They don't have to have all the processing equipment. So we can really form a cooperative type organization to process, package, distribute the food that is coming from our communities, whether it's an urban, rural, or a combination of both. So, for instance, in Baltimore City, there's dozens of urban farms, but no single one of them is really producing enough food to provide for their community in a giant way. Not everyone around, let's say, a Strength to Love farm is going to be able to eat just from that farm. But if we can take that, package it with some of the bigger farms in Baltimore County, some of the food that they're producing, they have animal products, they have, bigger, grain type products. We can package those together into ready-made meals. We can also do them in grocery boxes and get them to folks. So this year, with this initiative, Local Meals, which I founded this year, we were able to provide over 300,000 meals to folks. Some of it was individual meals and some of it was in grocery boxes. Much of it is sourced locally, but all of it sourced regionally. So I see how much it worked, how grateful people were to have this food. We made a big impact to the community, and it demonstrated to me that the obstacle here is not necessarily education. People want this food. They want the healthy food. So I think we can work on getting it to them a little bit better. Let's see. So working within your community. So what it's really coming down to is, yes, we need research and development. Yes, we need innovation. Yes, we need to work a little bit on the software and help local farmers. But it comes down to teamwork. And if we can work together, we can really build anything. We can help with workforce development. We can bring kids into the field of green jobs, and urban farming, and we can actually make a difference and maybe stop that rising line on this chart that's showing that more people are going to get hungry. But it is not a dire situation. I do think that all of these are feasible solutions. And with that, that's the end of my pictures and presentation. If anyone wants to contact me, that is my email address. If you want to write it down, I also put it in the chat, but I'm going to stop the presentation here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. This was phenomenal, fantastic, also to get the big picture. I mean, because that's what I think we miss so often is either we talk only local and then it's like, okay, every raised bed is of course worth talking about in and for itself, but seeing the link from the raised bed, from the like the kids working on the raised bed, all the way to national and global poverty issues, which is so shocking because, of course, when we talk about ending poverty, a lot of people who are not poor in the U.S. think mostly outside the U.S., right? This is like an immediate reaction, and we don't look so much inside. And the numbers you gave, they're really, really stunning. And I think, I mean, this is just something, this should be a wake-up call, because obviously we're not going to solve this in by tomorrow. But given the increase, the numbers that you said, doubling poverty, doubling food insecurity through the crisis, and the crisis isn't over even yet, we really need to be very careful to create resilience, to empower, and also, also create opportunity in communities and get people out of poverty now, because this is I think a very embarrassing situation to be in, quote, the richest country on earth. Well, that might be debatable, but certainly a rich country, and still have these issues. And I think that's really important to see the whole context. Thank you so much. We do have questions already, and I want to encourage everybody, if you do have questions, first of all, if we can't answer all the questions, don't worry. You've seen Seth's email, and you can also post them later online on social media, and you'll get responses. And you can email to Seth, and you can also ask me, and I will relate this. And I do hope that this is also not the end of our urban farming and farming discussion here on Pocosito. But now let's jump into the questions. The first one was, and that's a very tricky one, but very important one: why did farmers have to dump or discard produce or milk or whatever, and why not find other channels? Why was that so difficult to give away or donate edible or quality food items, be it legumes, be it vegetables, be it dairy products, or eggs? We've heard all these terrible stories. Tell us, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, and that is a good question, and it's, you know, it has broken my heart all summer and fall to see that this year. Basically, most of these farms, they're not set up to dispose of those on site. You know, if they can't get rid of all of it. So as far as donating it, it's not always simple. We think, maybe, you know, I always thought, hey, we can put a post out there on Facebook or something. People come get the free milk, come get the free food. And it's not that simple. It actually comes down to logistics. And there is a lot of cost in packaging and transportation and distribution. So if you, especially anything that's frozen or refrigerated, you know, it's a hefty cost just to get it to where, let's say, a center for distribution would be. Which what I've been doing this year, it could be a parking lot, it could be a school parking lot, it could be inside a church. And, you know, I've been fighting with it all year, trying to find walk-ins. And, you know, I'm very fortunate to have been able to do some food rescue and distribute some of that food, but definitely not enough. And, you know, maybe just a small fraction of what was available. So that's a good question. I'm glad that you're looking at it like that. And that's one of the things that we need to incorporate is the solution for these types of scenarios, which I think the omni-channel distribution solves. So if there is an opportunity, let's say there's an overstock of something somewhere, well, we can get that into people's hands. You know, bare minimum, it can get to a food bank or a school or a hospital or something, somewhere that does have the facilities to take care of these things. But it's very, very tricky once you get into food transportation and processing and storage. It's tricky. There's a lot of different factors involved and a lot of money. These things are very expensive.
Well, yeah, thank you for clarifying. And I wanted to say, okay, there are 3 ways for people, at least 3 ways from what I can tell, for people to ask questions now here. So you can type it in the chat, you can use the Q&A function, or you can raise your hand, and hopefully I or some of the speakers will notice and then give you the word, and then you can ask questions directly. So it's very multi-level here. I'll try to keep an eye on it. So it says you don't need to follow.
I can answer some of these really quick if that's okay that I see in the chat. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
And hey, Marjorie, it's nice to see you on here. Yeah, local meals. It's still going. We've just kind of dialed back a little bit because, there's less food being produced now. So a lot of it was food rescue, but also I've had to jump onto some construction building projects. So this year was pretty big for me, and I'm still finalizing some things. So yes, it was. She says, was it a lot of was it just too much work to do all that delivery? It was a lot of work. Not too much though. And what we're doing is we're trying to find some more funding to keep it going. I think with some more funding, we'll be just fine. I'm sure that we'll have that in the next couple of months. But we're going to keep it going. I have been working with the largest software company in the world. We have a program developed. It's developed. I just have to pay them. So, you know, it's expensive, but I'm working with several other organizations too that can help with the proper manufacturing, you know, food processing type of equipment. So we're trying to raise money. If we can raise enough money to get the software out there, I think this will be a huge thing, and it'll help tons of farmers and get healthy food into people's hands.
Great. And just a reminder, if you're not speaking, it's great if you can mute yourself just to avoid feedback in the audio channel, just so we don't have too much of interference there. That's great. Seth, there's questions also in the Q&A section. It's a bit of a tricky one. It's coming from Donna. It's saying, with the World Food Program winning the Nobel Peace Prize this week, do we see a shift in understanding of this need? They were thankful for the recognition, but warned of a hunger pandemic. What do you think? Is that happening? Is the public reacting and thinking more about it now?
Yes, for sure. I do think that they are. You know, these ideas of urban farming and community-supported agriculture programs, they've been promoted quite heavily for the last several years, and I think more and more people are coming around to that, community gardens, stuff like that. So I think more people are becoming aware of it. They're just not sure what to do about it. They're not sure how to support it. And, you know, even in the urban farming world, which I know many of you on this call have been in, it's not always very clear what we can do to help. You know, and it might be a resident in a city or anywhere wants to support their local farmers, and it's just not clear how to do that. And it's also not easy, even for folks that can afford to pay maybe more to get that better, fresher food. It's just not simple to do. So I appreciate you asking that. I do think people are looking at things differently now for the food supplies. You know, we just need to create that opportunity so people that want to support it can support that.
Okay, great. And then we have questions in the chat. One is very specifically about the cost of your solar panels, and maybe that's something you can answer separately, but feel free to elaborate on that too. It's just we're coming towards the planned end of the first session. I know I kind of torpedoed the plan a little bit with my skipping out of the program, but so we can certainly answer one more question. The second question, also from Aaron, coming from Aaron, is there a fundraising link for the process you were just speaking of that could facilitate distribution for farms? So that's a good one that links to what you said. People don't know how to help or what to do to help.
Yeah, so if you go to localmeals.org, there is a donate button on there. So you please donate as much as you would like to donate, and we'll make sure that turns into food on someone's table from a local farm. But for the larger fundraising process, I'm just trying to work with the right people and put together a more organized, fundraising campaign. So hopefully we'll get there very soon. And for the solar panels, the ones that I was showing pictures of, they cost about $750. I do, now those materials, I source as locally as possible, but I can tell you that aluminum and that plastic and copper is not being produced in Baltimore. But there are new designs that I'm working on. The ones that I showed you were my 7th design. So I have been prototyping and come up with new designs. So we are looking at using hemp as hempcrete and some other greener materials to create these same designs in a way that isn't as impactful to the environment. So we're working on that.